Okay, folks, time is a little after 8 o'clock. The moderator recognizes Eric Tyler.
Mr. Moderator, I move that we reopen town meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Pat Constantino. All those in favor of reopening town meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It has been so moved and seconded, and that is, now we are open. By the way, we actually, for those who are not familiar, phase 1 of town meeting is the election. And so this is what we did Monday was recess. I'd like to suggest or request that people make sure that their cell phones are either turned off or muted or put on airplane or whatever you do. I'm now going to ask everyone if they would please stand and do a salute to the flag. It's behind you. And by the way, I realize that there's not a lot of folks here, but at the end, if we have any veterans, I'm going to ask you to remain standing. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And do we have any veterans? Please remain standing. Any veterans that are here, I want to thank you very much for your service to our country. Thank you. My name is Chuck Mitchell, and I am the moderator. I do want to thank 143 people who showed up to vote on Tuesday. I also wanted to extend a thank you to the supervisors of the checklist, the ballot clerks, the assistant moderators, all those who are helping here at the polls today. And I also want to thank Kurt Young up there in the back for being here today and providing both the audio and the visual for us all. Thank you, Kurt. This is an interesting day for me because whether some of you know it or not, today is my last meeting as your moderator, as the moderator, and I have been proud to serve the town of Tilton now for 12 consecutive years. Those who are not registered voters and have not yet picked up their voter cards need to be outside that back rail. When the time comes and we have any kind of a standing vote, you will need to have your voter cards. I hope those that are sitting down here inside the rail have all checked in with the supervisors of the checklist. To my immediate left is my assistant moderator, and by the way, your newly elected moderator, Helen Hanks. And to her left, way down at the end of the table, is our town clerk, tax collector, and our newly elected town clerk, tax collector, Kim Souls. I have two assistant moderators today that will help count any kind of standing votes. One of them is Linda Burns. Where are you, Linda? Okay. And Bob Hardy. To my right, your left, Eric Pyra is the chair of the select board, and he will introduce the rest of the members of the select board.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. To my right is Vice Chairman Pat Constantino. To her right is Selectman Joe Jessman, also newly elected Selectman Joe Jessman. To his right, John Scanlon, and to his right, Selectman Scott Ruggles. To Scott's right is our Town Administrator, Jeannie Forrester, and to her right is our Town Finance Officer / IT Guru, Scott Tim Pearson. And Gail Estig sitting in the second row, the chief seats today. So thank you everyone for coming.
Okay, to my left and your right, beside Helen, is Catherine Dawson. Catherine, will you introduce the Budget Committee?
Morning. To my immediate Christine Dubinsky, Judy Tilton is being a supervisor this morning. Our ex-officio member is Scott Burgos, Selectmen, and Billy Lawrence and Deb Shepherd couldn't be this morning, but they are members. Billy is our chair.
Okay, next. The first part of our town meeting, of course, was the election. And now I'm going to call on Kim, if you would, just to read aloud the election results. And I think you'll also find it up on the screen.
All right, good morning. For Selectmen, Joe Jessamine, 123 votes and 10 write-ins. Moderator, Helen Hanks, 132 votes and 4 write-ins. Town Clerk Tax Collector, Kim Souls, 131 votes and 4 write-ins. Treasurer, Sandy Islam, 133 votes. Supervisor of the checklist, Bernard Chapman, 134, 0 write-ins. Trustee of the trust funds, Ian Robinson, 128, and write-ins 1. Budget Committee, Christine Dembinski, 126, write-ins 4. And finally, Sewer Commission, Jason Wright, 126, write-ins 9.
Congratulations to all those elected. A reminder, all of those who were elected, please come down here to the front at the end of the meeting so that you can be officially sworn in. As you perhaps know, every year I have something called Moderator's Rules. They're on pages 21 and 22 in the Tilton handbook or the report, annual report. I want to just mention a couple of things right now and review these real quickly, and then we'll get right on. And I'll have, after I finish reviewing these, I beg to get a motion from the floor to adopt these. Closing debate. Closing debate should be done after sufficient discussion, probing on any particular warrant article. If you get the floor to speak for an item or against the item, you cannot then speak and then immediately follow that up with a request to close debate. If you got the microphone to speak for or against, that's what you do. And if you want to move to close debate, you're going to have to go get in line again. And I will, as I have done in the past, if I don't think sufficient discussion has been had on a particular article, I will try to perhaps refuse that request. I want you to know that any decision made by the moderator, however, can be overturned by the body. So if I were to say, no, I'm not going to accept that, and somebody challenges me, we'll put it to a vote. That's simple. Rule number 8 says, also to close debate is 2/3 majority. Tabling a motion. Some people think that tabling a motion actually kills it. Actually, what it does do is it takes it off the floor for the time being. And if it is tabled, it can be brought back at any time during the meeting. If you really want to kill an article, then you can move to indefinitely postpone it, which would then mean it cannot be brought back up again in this meeting. Another one, restricting or reconsideration. The motion to reconsider, which is in Article number 19, is supposed to be a motion that someone who is on the winning side, not the losing side, to bring back, to have another vote on something because they have information that was not brought forth originally. It is not intended to be a mechanism for someone who loses on a vote to simply go back and to bring it back again. And also warrant articles that are reconsidered oftentimes will require a separate town meeting in order to deal with them. I intend to let everyone who wants to speak for or against a warrant article, they have to do so. As you know, on the time, I have set the moderator's rules a time limit of 2 minutes for or against. Those who are moving an article will have more time. And if anyone who has speaking for or against really needs more time, we'll do that. Never my intent to cut anyone off. However, it's also nice if people don't, when they get to the microphone, don't ramble. Lastly, Rule 23 and 24, again, can be overturned by a vote of the group. Let's see. If on a voice vote, which I expect I would have on almost all the articles, if I am ever in doubt, I will ask for a standing vote. That would be when you would please stand and hold up your voter card, and then I would have my 2 assistant moderators do the count. And I will tell you that when we do the count, I'm asking to make sure that you are inside the rails in the back in order to have your vote counted. If by some chance I am presented with an issue that I'm uncomfortable with making an immediate decision, I will call for a very short recess to communicate with others around me. I ask people when they get to the microphone, I know this, we do this every year, would you please state your name when you get to the microphone? We are having this meeting transcribed, and it is going to be done later, and in order for the transcription to be correct, whoever's doing that will need to have each person's name. So please state your name before talking. And without objection, I don't intend to read the entire warrant right now, which is sometimes done. At this point, I would be glad to accept a motion from someone to accept the moderator's rules. And I guess so moved by Pat Constantino. Do we have a second? Seconded by Jane Alden. All those in favor of accepting the moderator's rules as written, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you. The moderator's rules have been accepted. Let's go right now to warrant article number 2. Now, as I do this, I'm going to read it, and then I will read it again before the vote. You see if the town will vote to raise excuse me on this one. I'm going to ask for a very brief clarification. Mr. Pearson, can you clarify the correct amount here?
The correct amount is the amount in number format, $5,992,680.
680. And if you will notice that the $80, that the wording had been written out on the warrant as $81, but the number in parentheses is correct. And without objection, I will read that as $80, and we don't have to go through the process of a formal vote to amend this, because it is correct with the number. Okay, let me read this now. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,992,680 for the general municipal operations. The recommended amounts do not include special or individual warrant articles, which will be addressed separately. All this is required to pass as a majority vote. And this is being moved by Catherine Dawson. Catherine. Okay, Catherine Dawson has moved article number 2 on the floor. floor for discussion. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
It has been seconded by Selectman Scott Robbins. Okay, the floor is now open for discussion.
Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to make a motion. Hello? Okay, thank you. Mr. Moderator, I'd like to make a motion to increase the bottom line budget by $10,272 for the purpose of benefiting Community Action Program in the amount of $3,700, line item 01904415.99910, from $8,300 to $12,000, and Franklin Visiting Nurse Association in the amount of $6,572, line item 01-90-4415.99-922, from $6,000 to $12,572.
Let me clarify. What Pat wants to do is to amend the budget, not move it. So if you have that, Pat, in writing,
I will correct that, sorry, amend the motion, amend the bottom line budget, thank you.
I need a copy of that, please. Okay, does anyone need that repeated? It was to amend the budget by increasing it by $10,272. And that was to be done in two separate line items. Pat, would you like to speak to that?
I would, and just very, very briefly, we have almost a $6 million budget, and the only two items that the Budget Committee cut were the VNA and Community Action. The town of Tilton has been known always to be a caring and compassionate community for those in need, whether it be the young or the elderly. Both Community Action and VNA have continued to provide critical care to populations through the years, despite the social changes which have impacted these groups. We need to provide the requested funds to these organizations again this year because their services to the growing needs in the town.
Point of order.
There was no second.
Who did second that? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Moderator apologizes.
The town of Tilton has been known always to be a caring and compassionate community for those in need, whether it be the young or the elderly. Both Community Action Program and VNA have continued to provide critical care to the population through the years, despite social changes which have impacted these groups. We need to provide the requested funds to these organizations again this year because their services to the growing needs in the town. To do so has the minimal impact of the tax rate and is approximately 1.5 cents, and yet provide life-saving services. In addition, it is in keeping with our character as a community. Thank you all.
Is there anyone who else would like to speak either for or against the proposed amendment? Yes, microphone number 2.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Jason Wright, 570 West Main. I don't support the amendment, although I do support the concept of those two organizations. I believe this has been through the Budget Committee at a very thorough level, and I believe there was testimony from those agencies at the budget hearings that they would not alter their services for this year. I think with a $6 million budget, or approaching $6 million, I think there could be enough float or fat in this current budget as it's originally written for the town to do what it needs to do to take care of these agencies. If we look at last year's budget, there was a tremendous amount of surplus in the budget. Tremendous. And we'll have more discussion about that later, about what your selectmen did with all that extra money. So I believe we have a great budget that's already been through the process. There's a lot of extra float in here, so I do not support the amendment.
Okay.
Microphone number 2, then number 1. Yes.
Yes, I'm Jane Alden, and I do support the amendment, and I'll tell you why. All the organizations that the Budget Committee voted on, these are the only two organizations that service citizens from the cradle to the grave. I think that's a very, very important thing. And I spend a lot of time working with the elderly in our community, and yes, there are people more elderly than me. But I want to let you know that sometimes the only humans that some of the seniors in our community see are the people who deliver the Meals on Wheels. I want you to know that sometimes the only services, mothers who are suffering from depression after the birth of a child, only people they see are the visiting nurses and CAP. I think in this budget, with this amount of money, we can certainly provide another 1.5 cent or approximately 1.5 cent in our budget for this purpose. And lastly, I just want to say that it's amazing to me that I look around the room, and I've been coming to these meetings for 20 years, and I don't see a single person who has gotten any younger. I don't see a single person whose hair has gotten any lighter. I see a lot more gray hair in a lot of people. And I just think it behooves us as a community to service the people who've been there for us through the years, and the seniors in this community have, and the newborns and the infants who come into this world and are serviced by these two organizations are going to be here for a long time to come. So I urge you to vote for this amendment. And I wish you would do that.
Microphone number 1.
Yeah. I just want to speak in support of the amendment.
Your name, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lynn Fox. I want to speak in support of the amendment. It's such a minor amount of money per taxpayer that it does not make sense to me to do away with the services to support our most vulnerable residents. This doesn't make any sense to me.
Microphone 2.
Ellen Blair. I'd just like to hear from the Budget Committee about why those two items.
Okay, thank you. Catherine, would you like to speak to that, or someone else?
Yeah, I don't have my cheat sheets, but the Budget Committee spent a lot of time going over the entire budget, outside agencies, a huge amount of time. We interviewed representatives of these two agencies in particular. One of the things that we weren't very pleased with is the way they apportion the monies over the towns and the county and the areas that they serve. There wasn't any rhyme or reason to it, and it seemed to be fair to the town of Tilton that we're paying much more than others for the same services. Some of these agencies get a lot of federal dollars, and we just felt we decided to give them enough, considering what they already had in the federal dollars.
Anyone else on the Budget Committee wish to speak? Yes?
Christine Dubinsky, just to add on to that, what we came up for final numbers, we're still above most of the towns that will get benefit from the services. And I also want to clarify, it's not 1.5 cents per taxpayer, it's per thousand, or whatever your house is valued.
Anyone else? Pat?
Well, there are two things. One is
Pat Constantino?
Pat Constantino, same person. When we look at what's apportioned to other towns and cities, we pay $67,000 to the Pines Community Center, and last year we split it with Northfield. Last year, Northfield cut their Pines Community Center by $18,000. We paid that burden. We paid $67,000, and not only did we raise it this year, the Budget Committee, they're paying $69,000 this year. So we're asking $10,000 for people that need our help. This is Meals on Wheels, this is fuel assistance, this is staffing. when asked about staffing, if they are going to still provide our services, but when you make that phone call, you're not going to get that same person the services. You're going to go around to different people because they're not going to have that same staffing that they have now. They've cut the Belmont Senior Center because of staffing. They've cut hours in the Laconia Senior Center. They haven't done that for us yet. So they provide our programming for us at the Senior Center, 20-hour program director, and I can go on and on. But I did check the numbers for the 1.5 cents, and that's what I was told by the finance director, so I'm sorry if that's incorrect, Christine. But think about that. We're paying $67,000, $69,000 this year if you approve this budget. And we're asking for $12,000 for the V&A, and we're asking for $8,300 for the Community Action Program. Think about this.
High technology, don't you love it? Anyone else? Yes, microphone 2.
I just don't see your name, right? Sabrina McPhail?
Sorry, your name?
Sabrina McPhail.
Yes?
I just have a question. I don't know if Pat can answer. But I work with a lot of people at my job, and they've got senior things, well, only because they're not providing the services because of COVID. They're not open yet. So is that why those jobs were cut? Do you know?
To my knowledge, Community Action did their best not to cut any services whatsoever, but they had to do end runs around staffing. Now, the Franklin Fuel Assistance Program had to move, and the person that did the staffing is now, I believe, Laconia. So when you call for fuel assistance and you do that application, you're going to do an end around to different organizations. They will still, quote, provide that service, but they may resource it out now if they don't have the funding. And that's what I'm saying.
Microphone number 2, Mr. Damon.
Good morning, Mr. Moderator. My name is Tom Damon, live in Calefield Road. I also belong to the Community Action Program and have used their services for the last several years. And I have an intimate relationship with Kathy, who's the head of the Community Action. Their services are not being cut. I apply every year for fuel assistance, and I get fuel assistance. Thank God they're there. But their services and staff is not being cut. That's all there is to it. I spoke to them last week about an issue that I was having. She solved the issue within 2 hours. The services are second to none. And they still provide the services no matter what. Kathy's told me personally, we want you to get what you need to get. We want you to do this. And they have problems with carriers, they have problems with other people, but they don't have problems with us. Thank you.
Microphone 2.
Jane Alden again. Just want to say that during COVID, the services of CAP were not cut, but in some cases they used volunteers. They do shopping for seniors who aren't able to get out, who are shut in. And during that time, I was one of the people who did the shopping for the seniors. So they made use of volunteers when they had a need. And people are more than willing because many, many people in our community have used their services in one way or another. Thank you.
Seeing no one else at the microphone, let me read what the amendment is. I'd like to amend the bottom line budget by $10,272 for the purpose of benefiting the Community Action Program to the amount of $3,700, line item 01-90-4415.99-910 from $8,300 to $12,000. And the Franklin Visiting Nurses Association by increasing that by $6,000 $572 in line item 01904415.99-922 from $6,000 to $12,572 for a total amount again of $10,272. All those in favor of this amendment, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Nay. I rule that passes. So now the bottom line budget, which is on Article 2, which had been 5992,680, and it's going to be, we'd have to add 10,272. Yes.
That's $6,002,952.
$6,002,952. Yes.
Can somebody explain to me why such a difference in the police department team salary? I mean, I know we got a new chief. Is that an accounting thing, or is it? I mean, it seems like a pretty big drop.
Okay, Speaker's Lynn Fox. Who's going to respond? Someone from the Budget Committee?
Wants to know the significant difference between the chief's salary from the previous year and current year?
Right. I mean, the average, the 3-year average is 90,000, and now it's 39. That's a problem. Is that just a part of the year, or is it? There's some certain numbers, numbers in here.
Lynn, would you go back to the microphone and clarify that for everyone?
The 3-year average shows the chief's salary at $90,292. This year's allocation is $39,390. It's just a big drop, and I'd like to understand what it's about.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
Mr. Moderator?
Mr. Pearson, you're recognized.
Thank you. What that represents is an anomaly, because this is a year when our former chief left at the end of 21, and due to the time frame to recruit and hire a chief, it was deemed that it would be July time frame that we'd be looking at for budget purposes. So that's representing half a year's salary.
It's not going to be retroactive.
Yeah, because we are going to be 6 months without a police chief, we've only put in enough for the last half of the year. Are there any other questions about the budget? Yes?
Is this on? I believe we were going to get an explanation from Jeannie regarding the 4% salary increase across the board. Did we have that?
Do I get it? I don't have any explanation about anything. Yes, okay. The question is the 4% salary increases across the board.
Sure, so the way the town of Tilton handles merit increases for employees is to create the merit pool of 4%. That 4% is not guaranteed, it's based on performance. So let's say somebody might perform okay, they would get a 2% merit increase, and that is, those determinations are recommendations made by department heads to the selectmen, and the selectmen ultimately make that decision. Somebody could get no increase, somebody could get 4% increase. So does that explain? It's not guaranteed, 4% is not guaranteed.
Microphone 2.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Bob Brown from Sanborn Road. I have a question from Stephen Leary, School Street, who can't be here today, relative to item number 01-90-4520, 0.99-970, page 13, Heinz Community Center. And Pat kind of alluded to this a little while ago. Steve would like to know specifically why there was a discrepancy last year in the 50-50 agreement that left Northfield about $14,500 contribution, that's less than Tilton. I did some research myself this morning, out of curiosity, I went back to as far as annual reports in 2015, and going back to 2015, the 50-50 split every year. So Steve would simply like to know if someone can answer the reason why 14,000.
Yeah. By the way, with the heating system in the fan, make sure that when you speak in that, you speak a little bit louder. I had trouble hearing all of that, but we've got someone here that would like to respond. Moderator recognizes Pat Constantino.
Sorry, sir.
Yes.
Scott Rhodes.
I'm sorry, I recognize Pat first. Go ahead, Pat.
So, Mr. Moderator, to try and answer the question, I believe a discrepancy in Northfield's contribution came from the fact that they accounted for the COVID funding that was given to Pines, removed that amount from what they were going to contribute to the Pines, so that it came to that bottom line number for Northfield. That's why it was reduced.
Thank you very much. If that's the only answer, that's fine. I'll pass that along to Mr. O'Leary.
Yeah, but you still like to speak.
Thank you. Historically, we have voted for funds for equally for the Pines community, and it's a bottom line budget. Northfield has historically in the past, not every year, historically in the past, defunded some of those funds in Pines community, and they've not always paid 100%. And it's staggered among the past years, not just last year. Last year, according to Kevin Baldwin, it was $18,000, and it did relate to the COVID. Some of it did relate to COVID funding. However, in the past years, you can look back, as Bob had stated, they did defund some of those funds.
Microphone 1. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, Julia Harvey Drive. Yeah. Is it appropriate to make a motion cap the raise at 3%? That's okay with it. It wouldn't be fine. If so, I'd like to make a motion to cap the raises at 3% due to the fact that it's...
At this point, no.
Mr. Moderator, could we ask people to speak up when they're at the mic?
I am trying to, yes, get people to speak up a
We
little.
can hear what they're saying.
The previous speaker wanted to know whether or not it's possible to cap a raise at 3%. What I would be willing to accept as a motion would be to remove a certain amount of money from the bottom line of the budget. One of the things that happens is when you get into a budget, and it's no different with the school district, basically, bottom line is you tell them how much money they're going to get, and that they have the right to expend it, and they actually have the right to move money from one account to the other. So I don't think that that's appropriate. However, if you just for your own satisfaction would like to know how this body feels about 3%, 4%, I guess, you know, I understand that, but I wouldn't accept that right now as an amendment on this. Let's see, I'm going to recognize microphone 1 first, Mr. Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ken Norton, East Main Street. I just wanted to comment on Ms. Fox's question to say that I don't think it's proper that we have a person who has the full responsibility of serving as maybe without the title as chief, and we are not compensating. And I say that as having extensively worked on law enforcement issues as a member of the governor's law enforcement accountability community transparency. It bothers me that we are looking at going another 4 months without somehow compensating the person.
Microphone 2.
Yes, very often. I just wanted to make a comment on the capping of the salary at 3%. I don't think it's a salary at 3%. I think that's a merit increase rule that can go up to 4%. Just to correct that.
Anyone else care or wish to speak on the budget? I'm not seeing anyone else right now. Wait a minute, one more speaker. Good. Sound better? Okay.
Was that microphone on?
It is. Yes, microphone 2.
Senator Sanders, Capitol Road, and I had a question about the merit pay raise. The first question is this something that has been practiced for some time? And the second question is, how many of the people get the top raise versus do not? I mean, is it like 90% of the people get the top raise or 50% of the people? I'm just curious what the history is of it. Thank you.
Jeannie Forrester, would you like to respond to that?
According to finance director, he would estimate about 50% gets the 4%. And since the finance director deals with the budget committee, I'm going to turn it over to him. He's more intimately aware of how all that works.
Thanks. I think. I don't have the specific numbers, but I'd say, just sort of estimating, thinking about outside of the collective bargaining unit, which is the union at the police department, I'd say it's probably about 50% receive the maximum. But it really does vary, and there have been years, as Administrator Forrester said, that some people have received none. In the past, it had been, I would say, more years than not, been budgeted at about a 2.5% increase. Last year it was budgeted at 2%, but with inflation and with the job market that we've been facing for municipal employees, we've been finding that our starting wages aren't sufficient, and even recruiting in for experienced people aren't sufficient. So there's a concern that our wages keep pace with the marketplace as well. So, but again, it's simply a pool, it does not guarantee an amount. One other thing I'd like to clarify, Mr. Moderator, if I may, regarding the pay for the chief's salary. We do not currently have a chief of police. That's why that line was cut down. The officer in charge of the police department is being compensated in full amount through the officer's wages line, which you'll find in the budget. So just to clarify.
Are there any other questions on the overall? Yes, one more over here, then microphone 2. Yes. Nice and loud.
Christine Davidsky. This question's for Tim Pearson. Since we're not able to accept the motion as a percentage, if you could provide a dollar figure to reduce the percentage of the cap on the salaries.
Yes.
For Tim.
You wanted to ask whether or not it's appropriate to set a dollar cap on the salaries?
No, you said we couldn't accept a motion regarding capping the percentage. So I'm asking Tim Pearson to provide the dollar amount to reduce and make the cap the 2.5%, if he's able to do that on these salaries.
If you had a specific dollar amount that you wish to move to cut the budget by, you could do that in the same way that we just had an amendment to do that, just as we had an amendment to add the $10,272.
Okay, I'll change the wording. I'd like to request what the dollar difference would be from Tim Pearson as 4% to 2.5%.
Mr. Pearson, do you understand the question?
Yes.
And she would like to make the difference between, what, 2.5 and 4?
That amount is $8,424 across the three merit lines, which is in the administrative budget, public works budget, and police budget.
So at this point, since you actually got the floor to ask a question, if you would like to put together an amendment to lower the budget by $8,424, you can do so. And in the meantime, since you did not have that as an amendment, I am going to go to microphone 2. Yes.
Mr. Moderator, Jason Wright again, West Main Street. I just would like some clarification on what you just mentioned as to we can or cannot change lines in the budget, but there's some discussion about having specific changes within the budget, although we're a bottom line budget. So on one hand, we just moved our budget to over $6 million with some clear intent to affect specific lines, but then you gave us a conversation that said we can't affect specific lines because we're a bottom line budget. Could you just speak on that for a minute, please? Thank you.
Sure. Actually, what happened is that we increased the budget by $10,272. That money again goes, it was the intent of the maker of that motion where those funds should go. However, the ultimate authority to where those funds end up being spent relies solely with the select board. Is there anyone on the select board that would like to correct me? No, that's the bottom line. So at this point, anytime monies are either added or subtracted from the total budget, unless a specific line item were to be zeroed out with no increases, then basically the select board can and does throughout the year. They move monies from one account to another. Let's see. I'm going to go with microphone 2 first.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Tom Damon, Calerfield Road. Clarification, please. Are the salaried employees of the town entitled to a cost of living adjustment? And if so, how does that affect their merit raise? Thank you.
Mr. Pearson, would you like to respond?
There is no cost of living increase for any employees outside of the collective bargaining unit. It has a prescribed increase year to year. The merit is the only item aside from any change by the select.
Microphone one.
I think what we're dealing with is a problem that is widespread, throughout America, is the issue of hiring and retaining people who will work for the wages that are offered. And obviously that has changed in the last few years. It seems to me that the selectmen are going to do whatever they need to hire and retain this talent. So given that it's a bottom line budget and they can allocate funds, we would be hamstringing them to prevent them from retaining decent employees by limiting that amount to 2.5%. It is a problem in industry, it is a problem in municipal organizations. Hiring is a problem everywhere, and I don't think it's a good idea to limit them, because if they need to, they will just take the money from other parts of the budget. That is reality. So I think we should retain the 4% to give them some flexibility. Given that our town employees do not enjoy a cost of living increase, it seems to me kind of a slap in the face to them to thank them for their work by saying, yeah, but we don't think you're worth it. I would speak to the 50% though. Merit raises by definition are for merit. So you're saying that 50% of our employees work above are putting in excellent or above average service. I hope that's true. I think maybe some reevaluation of that might be 50%. On a grading scale, you go, A, B, C, D, right? 50% of our employees are well above average to get the highest merit raise. It just seems worth reevaluating. But I don't think we should limit our selectmen to who and what they can hire just for money that may or may not be spent. It seems to me that we should leave the pool as it is.
Microphone two, and then I will recognize Scott.
Sabrina McPhail. So I think we're talking about trying to decrease money is what everybody's discussing here. But why can't we decrease some money from the guy who runs our highway department that's driving his rigs, our rigs, not his, ours, around on the weekends? Last weekend I saw him in Belmont on a Sunday in a town truck. So how come we can't take some money away from that? Because that's going to cost us some fuel. I don't know how to make that happen, but I guess I can ask the question. That's all.
Thank you. The moderator recognizes Mr. Ruggles.
Scott Ruggles, so in regards to the 4% merit raise pool, I think we need to be very, very careful about cutting that. And as we've discussed extensively, it's a very competitive marketplace out there now. Municipalities are going between 4% and all the way up to 7%. So if we reduce what we're doing for our employees, the marketplace is wide open, whether it's from police departments who are offering $10,000 sign-on bonuses, to municipalities who are going up to 7% in their merit raise pool.
At this point, I have yet to actually have in my possession an amendment to reduce this. Are you going to propose one? Would you please do so now so that we can act on it, since people have already been speaking to it? You're on.
Christine Davidsky. Make a motion to reduce the bottom line budget by $8,424 with the intent to not give merit raise higher than 2.5%.
Is there a second? Second. There is a second. And your name, please?
Jason Wright.
Jason Wright. Okay, I will read the amendment. I move this is an amendment. I move to reduce the bottom line budget by $8,424 with the intent not to give more than a 2.5% salary increase. And it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? A moderator will recognize Selectman Scanlon.
Thank you. The amount that's in there is also for employee retention. I'm not sure if you're aware of the troubles trying to get people with CDLs, CDLAs. We can't get plow drivers, we can't get equipment operators at the rates that we're paying. Sometimes we have to go and increase wages in order to retain employees as well as obtain employees. We also have to go and, I forget how many positions, I think there's 3 positions at Public Works, 2 positions, and we are also looking for some administrative or officers at the police department. So it'd be real tough if we're going to say 2.5% and then try and give retention raises as well as competitive wages to hire, fill the positions that we have open. Thanks.
Microphone 2.
Chuck Drew, Clark Road, Tilton. As a local small business owner, the one thing anybody realizes today is hiring people that are willing to work for the wages that we are offering. It's tough. So I just want to say I'm in favor of keeping the percentage as what it is for the simple fact of it's tough enough to get people to come to work for you, but also to retain the people you have, which is my thoughts. Thanks.
Microphone 2.
Steve Bouvard. I agree, again, with what we just said. If we're going to take 50% of our best employees and give them a 2.5% raise, that's not a reward, that's not a cost of living. I think something along the lines of 4 to 6% is a lot more reasonable for rewarding our best employees for doing a good job for us. 2.5% being the best reward that we can give for our employees doesn't sound like we're in the business of retaining.
Anyone else wish to speak? Let me repeat the proposed amendment. I move to reduce the bottom line budget by $8,424 with the intent of not granting raises over 2.5%, signed by Christine Dembitsky. Okay, at this point, all those in favor of this motion to reduce the budget by $8,424, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Nay. Amendment fails, I so rule. Now we're back to the main budget, which is at $6,02,952. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak to the total budget? Yes, if you would like to go to the microphone, please.
I just want to call a question.
Second.
I will accept that. All those in favor of closing debate, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Debate is closed. So now we're back to the main motion. I will read it. To see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $6,02,952 for the general municipal operations. The recommended amounts do not include any special or individual warrant articles addressed separately. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Budget passes. Now we go on to Article 3. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate up to $103,864 for the purpose of purchasing and installing associated materials and supplies, tools, equipment, labor, and other services necessary for the construction and completion of LED street lighting in Tilton. This appropriation is not included in the operating budget. A majority vote is required, and I am going to call on Selectman Scanlon.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town adopt Article 3 as proposed.
And seconded by Pat Constantino. John?
Okay, so this is to go and convert our light, street lighting into LED lighting. This will be payback in 4 years. It will lower our annual cost of electricity by $22,710. There's also a rebate from Eversource for this, for $13,930.
John, did you want to say anything else?
These also, they have network controls. They can be dimmed or raised up in the lighting, which will provide further savings in electricity. So, any other questions?
John, what about the dimming? You all done?
Yes.
Okay. Microphone 2.
Jason Wright, West Main Street. I do not support this warrant article as presented. I think this year is a very expensive year for a lot of us, and we just saw our budget increase to the highest it's ever been. I don't think this is the year to complete this project, and I don't think the authors of this project looked for any grant money beyond the low-hanging fruit of the $13,000. I think you should go back to the drawing table, look for some grant money to help offset this, and I don't think we should pay this full cost of $103,000. This is not the year for it.
Anyone else? Microphone 2.
Yeah, Pat Clark from Gaylordville Road and our from Gaylordville too. I want to say that I support switching to LED lighting. But there must be a plan that has been reviewed by some committee, and I'd like to have a little bit more information on what the plan is. Is it just for Main Street or all the lighting in town? And how is that set up so that you can draw the wires later on if you want to do repairs in a conduit, for instance? So if there's a group that has got a committee chair that has looked into this, I'd appreciate it. I think LED lighting is really the way to go.
Selectman Scanlon, would you like to respond?
Yes, they're replacing the present heads and the arms with that, so there's no other wiring that's needed that will be replaced. It's going to be 14 cents per 1,000 on property valuation. So if you have a $100,000 property, that's $14. So it's been studied, and it is for the entire town. The entire town will be replaced.
I've got several other people here. Did you wish to go to microphone 1? Go right ahead.
I would like to speak in support of this. My name is Pamela Croy. I live on Rock Road. We have 8 years to at least start to reverse the effects of climate change. I don't believe in climate change. We will shortly. Anything that we can do now is very important. So I support this.
Okay, microphone. Is there anyone else right now that wants to speak since Jason has already spoken once on this? Microphone 1.
Lynn Fox. I also support this amendment, large part because the climate change things, we are going to see those effects sooner rather than later, and it's we've ignored it for 40 years. So, but more important, it's going to save the town money. From what I understand, you're saying we will recoup the costs in 4 years. Is that correct? Could you also go in? Could you go into a little detail on the procedure that will undertake? How will it? I mean, is it they're going to choose a street, do all that street at once over how many years? That will the replacement take? That kind of, if you so kind. Thank you.
John, a quick response?
Yes, it's only a matter of months to get it done once we approve this. It will reduce the annual cost for our electricity by $22,710, and that's the amount that was figured out about 2 months ago. And as you know, with fuel costs, it's going to be a lot more than that because our electricity will be going up substantially.
Microphone to Mr. Damon, and then I'll get to you, Jason.
On David Calefield Road. The way this article is written, it's going to put LED lights in the whole town, not just the lights that are existing. That's the way it's written right here. I don't want lights up on Calefield Road. I don't want lights on School Street, and I don't want lights on Sanborn Road. If you want to replace the lights that are existing with LED lights, that's fine. But that's not the way it's written in this article. The whole town is going to be at LED lights on it. My objection number 2 is fuel prices are going up. Home heating products are going up. Where are we going to come up, the citizens, the taxpayers, and the homeowners of this town to come up with this money? We make decisions every day, especially elderly, on a fixed income, whether we buy food or whether we heat our house. I think this is poorly written. I think it's poorly planned, and I don't think it's necessary at the present time. Thank you.
Microphone 2.
Jason Wright, West Main Street. I think everybody, senior or otherwise, is on a fixed income. I work for the state of New Hampshire. That's about as fixed income as you can get. And I'm sure private sector jobs, it's the same thing. I've done that too. Thanks, Tom, for saying that. But he also brought up a good point, which I was going to go right into, is a number of our roads that go through Tilton are state roads. So we watch our plow trucks drive through the snow to go plow the roads that the town is responsible for. But regarding lighting, there's quite a bit of state roads. So I want to know what the state's contribution is to the electric bill and the lights. I want to know what the state's contribution is on the upgrades and the changes on the state roads that go through Tilton. Because none of that is spelled out. I don't think this is a very good plan. I don't think it's well written. We don't have enough information. And it's a lot of money to spend this year. I have LED lights all over my house. Don't get me wrong. I support the notion, but I don't support this budget. I think it's a little fast to lose for us this year.
Microphone 1.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Juliet Harvey-Bolia, Delmont Drive, and I also served Main Street Committee for a couple of years where we looked at this. I'm in support of this article. We examined much more expensive lighting solutions for Main Street, which would probably be many more times the amount that this would be. So I see this as a good compromise. Safety is something that was always cited as a reason for doing this project, as many people down on Main Street wished for more lighting when they were down there. So I support this. Thanks.
Do we have anyone else that would like to speak to Article 3? Yes?
I'm still waiting for an answer to my question.
Sure.
Yes, we'll recognize John Scanlon.
Tess, I wasn't sure if that was a question or a statement, but we are responsible for all of the street lights in this town and for paying for the electricity for it. We are not adding any more lights. We are only replacing the ones that are there with energy efficient. At the same time, we're doing a survey on them as to see which ones we could possibly eliminate. This is total for cost savings, and it will save the town and pay back all of the hardware in 4 years.
Do you have anything else that...
Yes, Mr. Moderator, that doesn't answer my question. Can I
phrase your question one more time?
My question is, we have
we enjoy state partnership on the traffic signals and controls. There is a state partnership on the lights and the signals. Who on the committee for this lighting reached out to the state and asked for partnership on LED upgrades, because that benefits everybody, and what was their response?
Mr. Scanlon.
First, we've been working on this for many years as the Board of Selectmen to replace these lights and waiting for it was economically feasible. So we're responsible for all the lights in this town, and I'm speaking of the street lights, not the traffic lights.
Microphone 2.
Kathy Mitchell, I move the question.
Before you ask for it, a motion was made to move the question. Is there a second? There is a second. All those in favor of ending debate, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Debate has been closed. Let me read the Article 3 again, and then we will put it to a vote. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate up to $103,864 for the purpose of purchasing and installing associated materials, supplies, tools, equipment, labor, and other services necessary for the construction and completion of LED street lighting in Tilton. This appropriation is not included in the operating budget. A majority vote is necessary. Are you calling for a point of order? I am going to, I'm going to put the vote up. I'm sorry, Pat. Pat said she had here's the question, and I'm going to let the body decide rather than me. She says she has information relative to an incorrect statement that was made. I am going to ask you to say aye if you want to hear it and no if you want to just go right to the vote. So here you go. Those who want to hear Pat speak, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Nay. You got it, Pat.
The answer to one of Jason's questions is we were only replacing the town-owned lighting, not the state-owned lighting.
Okay. I will go back and read the article one more time, and then we will have the vote. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate up to $103,864 for the purpose of purchasing and installing associated materials, supplies, tools, equipment, labor, and other services necessary for the construction and completion of LED street lighting in Tilton. This appropriation is not included in the operating budget. Majority vote is required. All those in favor of Article number 3, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Nay. I'm going to ask for a standing vote with your voter cards. Get ready. I have 2 assistant moderators. Okay. All of those inside the rail who are in favor of Article 3, please stand and hold up your voter cards. Bob, you got more back here. Okay, those opposed, please stand and hold up your voter cards. very vocal in the minority. 39 having voted in the affirmative, 14 in the negative. Article number 3 passes, I so declare. Article number 4, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $2,500 to be added to the Tilton Senior Center Expendable Trust Fund. Previously established, this appropriation is not included in the operating budget. Majority vote is required. Moved by Pat Constantino. Yeah?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town adopt Article 4 as proposed.
Is there a second? Seconded by Lynn Fox. Yeah.
The current balance is $7,429.83. Adding $2,500 puts it at $9,929.83. Last year on the bus repairs in 2021, we spent $578. We have spent some additional monies in 2022. We also are doing some repairs this year on the building itself. The tax impact is 1 cent per thousand. For a property valued at $100,000, that would be $1 of additional tax for this article.
Would anyone like to speak to Article 4? Microphone 2.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Tom David, Kalis Hill Road. I'd like to support this article. I think it's very well written, very well made. It's needed. I just have one question. Why isn't it a line item in the general budget? Thank you.
Is there someone who would like to respond to that? Pat?
Having it in a reserve fund, it can roll over to the next year. If it's in a line item, it's gone. So it's in reserve, so it can build up. So if we have a large expense, such as insulating the attic or repairing a transmission or something, then it can roll over to the next year. That answer it, Tom?
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and read Article 4 again. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,500 to be added to the Tilton Senior Expendable Trust Fund. Previously established, this appropriation is not included in the operating budget. A majority vote is required. All those in favor of Article number 4, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Article 4 passes. Article number 5. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $35,000 to be added to the Highway Equipment Capital Reserve Fund. Previously established, this appropriation is not included in the operating budget. Again, a majority vote. Is there someone like to move this article?
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town adopt Article 5 as proposed.
Moved by Eric Pyra, seconded by Pat Constantino. Eric, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Currently, the Capital Reserve Fund balance is $116,009. Adding $35,000 puts the balance at $151,009 for 2022. A trackless sidewalk machine was ordered in 2021 for $156,473, with $45,389 to come from the 2021 budget and the balance from the Highway Equipment Capital Reserve Fund with no impact on the 2022 tax rate. This leaves a balance of $39,925 in the fund. The trackless machine will be used for maintenance of sidewalks in the winter and summer months. The machine also has attachments for other uses such as roadside mowing. The trackless was supposed to be delivered in November, but because of supply chains, it was just recently delivered this week. The tax impact on the $35,000 is just under 6 cents, or less than $6 per 100,000 of property valuation. The DPW director does not plan to make any major equipment purchases for at least 2 years.
Microphone 2.
Jason Wright, West Main Street. I was doing okay until I heard Mr. Pyre say something about this does not impact the 2022 tax rate. Raising and appropriating $35,000 affects which tax rate? Last year, this year, or next year? You can clarify that.
Mr. Pyre.
I believe, I'll need Tim's help on that one, but I believe the purchase of it had no effect on the tax rate.
Mr. Pearson.
Yes, I heard Selectman Barrett say that the tax impact on the 35,000 was less than 6 cents, and that is a correct statement. I believe what his statement was regarding no impact on the purchase of the trackless snow machine.
Any other questions or comments? Jason?
Math doesn't make sense then, because you said it doesn't impact the tax rate, and you're paying for the trackless with previously accrued funds, which is fine. That impacted previous tax rates, but then you have money in the current budget to complete that $156,000, because you don't have enough money in the fund right now to buy the trackless outright. You've got money in the budget, and then you have previously accrued funds. Is that correct?
Yes.
So to answer that, 45,000 came encumbered from the 21 budget. So including the 111,000 from the reserve fund, that the purchase of that is not impacting the 22 rate. So the only impact is the raising and appropriating of the 35,000 to start to replenish the highway fund again.
Any other questions or comments? Imagine how quiet it would be if we didn't have some people commenting. Mr. Damon, how are you, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Tom David here. Please clarify something. This money part of this money is going to replenish the capital reserve fund, and some of it is going to go towards the trackless machine. No, all of it is going into the capital reserve fund. It is? Okay, thank you. This machine has been ordered, or when is it due for delivery? It's here now? Thank you.
And it's been paid for as well.
What has happened to the tracked sidewalk plow? They're still using it? It's still in service? Is it going to be sold? What's going to happen to it?
Okay, you ask the questions, and I will call on Selectmen to answer. Who wants to answer about the equipment? Eric?
That equipment is still in use.
Okay, I'm going to microphone 1. Yes.
David Fox. A capital reserve fund is not about one piece of equipment, but it's a reserve fund for the entire operation. So let's not limit ourselves to, I think.
Microphone 2.
As Lake Hester Road moderator put of order, that comment was way out of line. About the meeting being shorter, certain people weren't commenting.
No, I didn't say shorter. I just said quieter. Come on. I
be quieter if you're...
Chastise me. Go right ahead.
You're fired.
I apologize. Not everyone had a sense of humor. 6A, Article number 5, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $35,000 to be added to the Highway Equipment Capital Reserve Fund previously established. This appropriation is not included in the operating budget. A majority vote is required. All those in favor of Article 5, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Article 5 passes. Article number 6. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $90,000 to be added to the town roads, bridges, sidewalks, capital reserve fund. This appropriation is not included in the operating budget. A majority vote is required. Moderator calls on Eric Piper.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town adopt Article 6 as proposed.
Second. Seconded by Scott Ruggles. Thank you.
Currently, the Capital Reserve Fund has a balance of $234,539. With the addition of $90,000, it will put the balance at $324,539. Of note, last year due to COVID, there were multiple projects that were delayed. The projects for 2022 include paving projects for Chestnut, Prospect Streets, Daniel Drive, the High Street Extension, West Street, and Pillsbury Lane. The Academy Street project, repair or replacement of the retaining wall, adding storm drains and paving are contingent on successful negotiations with the Tilton Northfield Water District, and also sidewalk paving on the south side of Main Street. The tax impact is 14 cents per thousand or $14 per $100,000 of property valuation.
Do we have any questions or comments? Microphone 2.
I know you don't want it to be quiet, so I'm going to keep going just a minute. All right. Jason Wright, West Main Street. Just to be clear, is Academy Street still on the table, or was that flat out canceled? Because I know the sewer commission spent plenty of money doing our pipes in the road because we were told that that road was going to be done. So we reacted based on that. So is Academy Street still in the works, or is it canceled?
Still in the works.
Any other questions or comments? Yes. Oop.
On David Calefield Road again. As I understand it, the Capital Reserve Fund for towns, roads, and sidewalks is $234,900. Am I correct?
Yes.
I'm assuming I'm correct. Why do we need another $90,000? I don't understand why this is even here. Again, I'm going to say, you know, it's $56 on my taxes, but, you know, come on. Home heating oil is $4.25 a gallon. You know, we've got to use some restraint here. We don't have to do every one of these projects. We didn't do them last year. So why aren't these funds going to be used for these projects again? I just don't get it.
Microphone 2, Mr. Drew.
Clark Road, Tilton. Just out of curiosity, why wasn't this just added to the budget? Why is there a reason that it's a separate article? That's kind of what I'm confused at. If we know we needed this, why wasn't it just part of the budget? I'm just kind of...
Let me try to answer that. I think the question was earlier that monies that get put into the capital reserve funds do not lapse at the end of the year, but are carried over to the next year. Eric, would you like to add something?
Exactly what I was going to say. The monies in the capital reserve fund don't lapse back into the general fund at the end of the year, but they stay in that fund until they're spent.
Microphone 2.
Rena McPhail. I just want to ask about Academy Street again. Could you tell us how that's happening? Because I thought that there were bonds that weren't secured. That's the word around the campfire I heard.
I'll call on Jeannie.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Moderator. So this project on Academy Street has nothing to do with bonding issues. This was a project that our DPW director has been trying to implement for a couple of years now. It's very complicated, property lines, easements, that sort of thing. We need to work with the Tilton Northfield Water District to come to some kind of agreement before we move forward. So that's why it didn't move forward last year, and we believe that we will be able to negotiate on behalf of the town to get this done this year.
Any other questions or comments? Microphone 2.
I'm Damon, Calebsville Road. I think I said this before, if we have $234,900 in the capital reserve fund, why do we need the $90,000?
I guess that is not a rhetorical question, but one that you were looking for an answer. Is there anyone here? John?
Sure, this is capital reserve fund, and it goes into our, let's say, piggy bank. If we empty all the money out of there, next year, if we have a $200,000 project, we would have to go and hit everybody up in the town for that $200,000. This balances it out. We draw off of it to repair roads, and we save, and we balanced it out over a period of time with the $90,000.
Anyone else like to comment on Article number 6? Microphone 1.
Lynn Fox. I just want to speak to the nature of capital reserve funds, and I think you guys tried to make it clear, but this is how we apportion costs over several years so that we aren't whacked with a $1.3 million road repair budget all of a sudden in a single year. Revolving funds are designed to spread that money over a longer period of time so that it's not a massive expense in a single year for an emergency. I strongly support this. It just makes sense to me. Thank you.
Microphone 2.
Steve Malcolm, Edward Street. I would recommend maybe moving this back a year. You're saying only $14, but you're doing it for the lights, you're doing it for the highway. With everything becoming more expensive, maybe something just has to take a sacrifice this year, and this is the article that gets pushed back. I already got a couple $100,000 in it. You want to raise it by almost $40,000 in one tax year. Doesn't seem like a good source of funds to me this year.
You want to speak, Pat?
I don't know if anybody has ever gone up to Academy Street and cut over to School Street. I know I do it all the time, but that where the water company's garage is where the problem. It's very, very problematic, and it's dangerous. Where the guardrail is, it's extremely dangerous. We need to replace the culvert. We need to put a retaining wall, and that is upwards of a couple of $100,000, maybe less. We don't know that yet, but we have to do extensive work on that. We've put it off for a couple of years now. The sidewalk, we've put that off for at least 2 years over by where Casamigos is. Has anybody walked toward Casamigos and tripped over the sidewalk? That's a hazard. That's a liability. So, yes, perhaps maybe we could put a couple of roads off which are generally, scheduled. We could probably put Prospect or Chestnut or Daniel Drive or High Street extension, and then next year everybody will say, well, you put those off, and they're dangerous now. So, for years we've put $90,000 in there. A couple years ago we combined the highways and the bridges and sidewalks all together. We used to separate them, but now in one warrant article, we have them all together. We need to get that Academy Street project done. It's dangerous, and we need to get those sidewalks done.
Anyone else? Okay, let me read Article 6, and then we will put this to a vote. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $90,000 to be added to the town's bridges and sidewalks Capital Reserve Fund, this appropriation is not included in the operating budget, requires a majority vote. All those in favor of Article number 6, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Article number 6 passes, and I so declare. By the way, if anyone is unhappy with my declaration of these votes, all you have to do is ask for a standing vote, and I will do that. But I was not in doubt. Okay, Article number 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $9,000 to be added to the reevaluation capital reserve fund established in 2002. This appropriation is not included in the operating budget and requires a majority vote. And I'm going to call on Pat Constantino to move this.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town adopt Article 7 as proposed.
Is there a second? Seconded by Lynn Fox.
Okay. The Capital Reserve Fund is used to pay for the cost of the town-wide reevaluation done every 5 years. The last year, the town appropriated $9,000. The Capital Reserve Fund has $47,795 in balance. With $9,000, it would bring the balance to $56,795. The contracted revaluation amount for 2024 is $74,280. Adding the $9,000 per year, 2023 and 2024, will add $18,000 to the balance of $56,795, which totals $74,795, just over the contract figure needed in 2024. The tax impact for this warrant is under 2 cents per thousand, or $2 per 100,000 of your property valuation. Thank you.
Any questions or comments? Being none, Article number 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $9,000 to be added to the reevaluation capital reserve fund established in 2002. The appropriation is not included in the operating budget. A majority vote is required. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Article number 7 passes. Article number 8. To see if the town will vote, raise, and appropriate the sum of $5,000 to the Lake Improvement Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund previously established. This appropriation is not funded in the operating budget. Majority vote is required. I'm going to call on Joe Jessamine.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town adopt Article 8 as proposed.
Second.
Seconded by Pat Constantino. Joe, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, sir. Currently, the Capital Reserve Fund has $4,517 at balance. With $5,000, that'll come to $9,517. In 2021, the reserve fund was used at Lake Winnisquam for $2,250 and at Silver Lake for $3,750. Last year, we appropriated $5,000 as well. We have several requests for money. The health of the lakes is vital to our town as an area for boaters and people who live along the lakes, the streams, and the river that has a lot of fish in it, and wildlife, ducks, big time up behind BJ's on that river. And I am totally in favor of this expenditure.
Moderator, we call on microphone 2.
Kathy Mitchell, Yellowville Road. I'm also speaking in favor of this. Conservation.
Speak up a little louder, please.
The Conservation Commission meets with the groups, Silver Lake Association and the Small Watershed Network prior to and during the year. We monitor what they are sending us as to where they are doing the milfoil removal. It's very expensive, and they go out and get grants. They get
grants from other organizations, from your DES, and we're doing our part by providing this money through this capital reserve fund. It's something that makes a real difference.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll read Article number 8. To see if the town will vote, raise and appropriate the sum of $5,000 to the Lake Improvement Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund. Previously established, this appropriation is not included in the operating budget. Majority vote. All those in favor of Article number 8, please vote. Please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Article number 8 passes. Thank you. Let's go on to number 9. See if the town will vote, raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 for the Tilton Island Preservation and Improvement Capital Reserve Fund. This appropriation is not included in the operating budget. Mr. Scanlon.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town adopt Article 9 as proposed.
Is there a second? Seconded by Pat Constantino.
Mr. Moderator, I may speak on this?
Absolutely, you got the floor, John.
Thank you. Last year, the town took 2 actions relative to the island. First was to approve the transfer of the town of Tilton Island to the territory and jurisdiction of the town of Tilton in Belknap County, and authorize the Selectmen to take any and all necessary acts to effect the transfer, administration, and management of the island. So it's ours. We got it. 10, 12 years of work, but we got it. Second action was to change the purpose of the existing Tilton Northfield Island Capital Reserve Fund to the Tilton Island Preservation and Improvements Capital Reserve Fund. Both actions were successful. Currently, there is $62,000 in the Capital Reserve Fund for the Tilton Island. With the additional $10,000, the balance will be $72,000. The tax impact for this warrant is less than 2 cents per thousand, or less than $2 per $100,000 of property valuation. We'd like to now begin the restoration and revitalization of the Tilton Island and the Tilton Island Bridge. The first step for the island would be to maintain a plan, or to develop a plan, that includes the assessment of the current conditions and restoration, revitalization. We've been notified New Hampshire DOT that they will likely begin slope rehabilitation and guardrail replacement along US Route 3 and the Winnipesaukee River, and that is targeted to begin in 2023. We're in communication with NHDOT to assure that our concerns relative to the mitigation are addressed, as well as any possible erosion impacts to the island and from work, and to seek ways to collaborate with them. I'm sure you've all been out on the island, seen where the rocks are eroding and out there. The town also received a grant to assess the condition of Tilton Island Bridge and prepare a restoration and revitalization plan. That work has been completed now, and we will begin the process of restoring and revitalizing the bridge. This is the only one of its kind left in this country. So I ask that you continue to fund this, and so that we will have the funds to continue and to do what we've set out to do many years ago, and that's to make sure our island doesn't wash away, to preserve this historical part of our town. Thank you.
Microphone 2.
Yes, Bob King from Lancaster Hill Road. We all go down to that island for the concerts and picnics and just like to spend time there. Is there any estimate on the cost, other than the state is going to be doing the railing? Is there any kind of an estimate on the cost of refurbishing the slabs that fell out into the river?
John?
So it's an involved process. It involves NHDS and the state. We're trying to get as much money in grants as well as the state for mitigation in the process of doing the guardrail, because we direct the water more towards it. So we're trying to put as much of that cost onto the state net. So we have not developed the actual cost. It's substantial for it to carry it alone, but with our town administrator, Keith Forrest, has been working diligently on grants and other ways to obtain this money and to get this. And we've made major progress on that. I cannot give you the exact amount.
Well, this is...
It's going to be more than the 72,000, I know that.
Yeah, where you do cost studies and valuations, but it's really something that needs to be preserved, because the people do enjoy that area.
Do we have any other comments? Microphone 2.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Tom David, Galeville Road. Point of information, please. I know you're applying for grants to help out through the state, but have you ever considered going to the private sector and soliciting money from the businesses? We have quite a few businesses in this town, and with deep pockets, they have these budgets for stuff just like this. And I was wondering if you would get out there and beat the bricks a little bit and see if we can get this thing funded by private means instead of by the taxpayer. Thank you.
Yes, John?
As you know, we hit Lowe's up a few times, and they restored the gazebo out there on the island, and maybe our town administrator might be able to comment on her efforts for getting support of local businesses as well as the grants.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. Article number 9, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to the Tilton Island Preservation and Improvement Capital Reserve Fund. This appropriation is not included in the operating budget. A majority vote is required. All those in favor on Article number 9, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Article number 9 passes. Now so declare Article number 10. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $42,000 to the Police Special Detail Revolving Fund. This appropriation is not included in the operating budget. I'm going to call on, it requires just a majority vote. I'm going to call on Scott Ruggles.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town adopt Article 10 as proposed.
Is there a second? Seconded by Pat Constantino.
If I may, Mr. Moderator?
Yep.
So we looked at and we've analyzed a number of things going into this and asking that we appropriate this $42,000 to this budget. In 2008, we adopted the Police Special Detail Revolving Fund. That fund has been used for a number of things along the way. This past year, we took money from the fund to pay for the new cruisers that we hope, and with supply chain issues, will arrive late summer. But we also acknowledge the fact that the fund now is down below $10,000, and we'd like to replenish the fund. The situation now with a reduced officer staff means that they are not able to take details as much as they have been in the past. As a reference point, year to date, they've only been able to take 28 hours of details, as opposed to last year. By this time, they were able to take 100 hours of details. The other piece is that we have a significantly aging fleet as of this point in time. As of February 16th, the lowest mileage frontline vehicle had over 80,000 miles on it. Best practices, as we've looked at, and we've looked at multiple agencies who advise police departments across the country. Best practices is to try and replace a vehicle in a department our size every year to year and a half. We'd like to be able to start that process and actively do it. We have to be able to acknowledge openly to all of you the fact that in taking on the building project, etc., there was a little bit in terms of not paying as much attention to the fleet. Yes, we have to play a little catch up. We're sorry that we have to do that, but we also know that we have a fantastic police department that has to operate in a municipality that is small but large because of our retail sector.
Microphone one.
I just have a question. If this is a capital reserve fund to purchase police vehicles, why is it called a police special detail instead of a capital reserve?
Mr. Ruggles?
Because that is how it's funded, and it's not just to purchase vehicles, but it's any equipment purchases for the police department. So we're foreseeing the need in terms of vehicle purchase going forward, that this fund may be used for that. We may increase, the police department may be able to increase the number of their detail hours. That could happen. We also need to be able to have a full force as well to be able to take more detail hours on.
Microphone two.
Adam Sadler, Lancaster Hill Road. I object to this article. This fund, to my knowledge, where the town portion of detail funds is deposited into. I understand that it is legal to add tax dollars to this. However, if the intent is to buy a police car with the money, I think it's in the best interest of the town, as we spoke about in Article 2, where the selectmen can move money around as they please, that there should be a capital reserve fund or a line item in the budget specific for buying a cruiser. The fleet has been neglected, as we've heard, and it's because buy cruisers out of the detail fund. Details aren't guaranteed year to year. It's money that's nice to have, but if the money's not there, we still need to buy a car. So this article, as written, is putting $42,000 in a fund that the selectmen can choose to use for whatever. And if the intent is to buy a car, then it needs to be done a different way.
Microphone one.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I tend to agree with the previous speaker, but Julia Harvey, Wilmot Drive. Question, what year is the police vehicle that you're looking to replace? Thank you.
Scott, can you answer that question?
Give me 1 second. It's a 2018. That vehicle averages 25,000 miles per year.
Microphone two.
Jason Wright, West Main Street. First, I appreciate Adam's comments. He and I don't always see eye to eye on fleet issues, but I have some alignment with what he had to say. My question is, it's my understanding that two vehicles in the same year have already been ordered and purchased. And I want to be absolutely clear, were those vehicles purchased from this fund, or were they purchased from the surplus of money that was a shortfall or a windfall of unexpended payroll in the regular operating budget? Two very different buckets. So I want that's my first question is, did we pay for those two cars out of last year's budget because we didn't have the staff? And why would we want to buy 3 vehicles in any year? Mr. Ruggles, who talks about fleet management, when you buy 3 vehicles in any year, that's a result of poor fleet management over several years. And that just puts you in a position of poor fleet management in the future years, because then you're going to have 3 vehicles all timing out at the same time. We ran into this before years ago when we leased and we had 3 cruisers all coming at the same year, and everybody said, yeah, won't be a problem. Well, most of those selectmen are still sitting at the front table, and here we are with a 3-vehicle problem. I support the police station, I support the police department, but this is poor fleet management. And am very opposed to how we buy vehicles. We should have a warrant article to buy a car. This smoke and mirrors thing about putting money in a fund and then the selectmen do what they want, you don't see a lot of that. When you want to buy a vehicle, you have a warrant article, and the voting body should be involved in that. So, thanks.
Now, would you like your first question answered? Mr. Pearson.
Yes. So to answer the portion of the question which revolved around how were these two vehicles paid for, there was $70,000 encumbered from the police budget last year due to staffing changes, and then the balance coming from the detail fund, which essentially depleted the fund. So it's both.
Microphone 2.
So how many vehicles were purchased? What is the on-the-road price for each vehicle, radio, sticker, now decal, the whole thing? What is the per vehicle cost presently, and what is the third to be proposed? And for what year?
Mr. Pearson.
I'm just trying to remember your point. So it was $61,000 and change. It included the police version of the Tahoe, plus all of the upfitting costs for it, and then everything with the exception of the tablet. And the tablets can be moved from existing frontline cruisers. So their MDT or mobile data terminal can move. So that's two of them, 61,000 and change.
Microphone 2.
Jason Wright, 570 West Main. I'm also asking what consideration was given to remaining with the Ford platform, since that's what we've had most of, and then items could be potentially moved over, light bars and some equipment at a cost savings to the town rather than changing to a Tahoe platform. Are we doing that just because that's what Franklin did or that's what some other towns are doing? What cost saving was put into switching brands?
Mr. Ruggles.
So, extensive consideration was put into it, Mr. Wright. Number one, the Ford platform, their analytics become very, very proprietary. Most of our maintenance is done by our master mechanic at the DPW, which saves the municipality a significant amount of money every year. As an example, to pull a water pump in the Ford, you need to remove the entire front end, which can take a car out of service for a couple of days. In the Chevrolet, and the Chevy Tahoe, it's a 2 to 3 hour operation and it's back on the road, just as an example. The other things that were taken into consideration are the fact that the Ford vehicles are unibody vehicles. So if you get into an accident with them, there's a far larger chance of them being totaled, where you have where you have a fully boxed steel body with the Tahoes. In consultation with the police department and the officers and the officer in charge, looking at the Chevy Tahoes as well, it gives far more room for the equipment. It gives far more room in the back to comfortably put anyone in the back who may have been arrested. And it is a platform that is very, very easily maintained here in town, thus reducing the amount of money that we have to use for maintenance.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $42,000 to the Police Special Detail Revolving Fund. This appropriation is not included in the operating budget, requires a simple majority to pass. All those in favor of Article number 10, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
I think the nays have it, but I tell you what, I want to see a standing vote, if you would please. So, all those in favor of passing Article number 10, please stand and hold up your voter cards. those opposed to Article number 10, please stand and hold up your cards. Well, interesting. Where are you going to put your money? Okay, 27 voting in the affirmative, 29 in the negative. Article number 10 fails. Yes.
Mr. Moderator, Jason, I'd like to protect the vote on this Article 10.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to protect your vote. In essence, that means that no, this could not be moved to be reconsidered at this particular meeting. Only requires a majority vote. All those in favor of voting in favor of protecting your vote, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Vote is protected. That shall not come up again at this meeting. Article 11, I know that there's a lot of concern with this. What I don't want to happen is there are two small points of interest, personal privilege that are going to be granted. And I'm going to do those for just a couple of minutes right now before we get into Article 11. And I hope you know that Article 11 is advisory only, and I know there's going to be some good discussion on that. I've seen some of it already on social media. Let's see, the first one, Eric. You ready? You aren't you going to talk about the charrette?
Oh, charrette, sorry.
You gotta pay attention.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Later on this year in September, if you recall last year, we were going to have what's called a Plan New Hampshire charrette happen in the town, but we postponed that to this year. And whenever someone hears the word charrette, that always seems to honestly glaze people's eyes over. Think of the word charrette basically as a workshop. And what it is we are working on having people from the University of New Hampshire come and they're going to look at the downtown area, basically from Riverfront Park all the way over to the Tilton Island Park. And they're going to give suggestions, but it's a community involvement. There's different meetings and workshops that will be held that we need the community to be involved in. So we will be putting out more information for this in the upcoming months as we get closer to September. But it's for everyone. It's a way for you to have a say in what happens in downtown. They can be looking at traffic calming measures or beautifying downtown, different things to help with the downtown area. We're very fortunate to have this group come in and have picked Tilton for this event. And just watch social media. We'll be doing a lot. We'll also have stuff on the town website, and that will be coming up in September. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
You're welcome. As I understand, there's one more item here with a community service award, John Scanlon.
So, I'm not the greatest at public speaking or that, but I got a few tips for family. I'll look at all of you, but I'm not good at that either. So, thanks, Ryan. But I can look at you all as friends, neighbors, and family. So that makes it a lot easier. So, one of the things, this is a Community Service Award. We've been blessed with outstanding employees, officials, and committee members. And we, as a governing body for the town, recognize they are our greatest assets. With great honor, we created a community service award for employees, officials, and committees who go above and beyond in the course of fulfilling their duties. For the 2022 town meeting, with consent of the board, we are pleased to let you know that this year's community service recipient for the town of Tilton is Chuck Mitchell. Since the beginning of time, Chuck has served on the Conservation Commission. I'm not sure how many years.
Started along with Bob Hardy back in 1983.
1983, before I was even born.
Thanks, John. I think that's 39 years.
Yes. Wow. Around that, a couple times around. During this time on the Conservation Commission, although Chuck didn't do it alone, he mustered a committee that's consistently strived to protect and acquire open spaces and balance the development of commercial and residential properties while protecting Tilton's natural resources. Just to name a few, like I said, it's not did him single-handedly, but he has mustered all of us together and done much of the due diligence to make all this happen. Some of those are Buffalo Park, 55 acres, discretionary use of Lockmere Golf Course, where families can use certain areas for tobogganing or sledding or that during the winter. Walmart, Ice House Pond, 5.18 acres. Country Lake Estates, 35.34 acres. Salmon Run, we all know about that and how long that took. Lots 71 and 72. Market Basket Easement, 8.746 acres. Miller Stock, 39.07 acres. Nickerson property, 19 acres. Bangor Outlet Mill in R.R. Kingsbury, 23.93 acres. I hope I'm not going over my time. I could go for a while by the way. Tilton McCall, Home Depot, 18.31 acres. I think we got that. So, Walmart, 1.32 acres. Winnisquam Regional School District, 11.6 acres. Welch Agricultural Easement, state of New Hampshire. The Dodge Wakefield Wildlife Corridor, 2.9 acres. Like I said, while Chuck did not protect these alone, Chuck has led us through the diligence and brought us to fruition on getting these protected. Next thing was Ken Randall, when he turned over the reins of town moderator, Chuck was elected, or maybe we call it pushed to the front, by huge margins. And I believe once you didn't even run, but we still to take on the town moderator. Chuck has led these meetings fairly and by the rules. Chuck has moderated our elections and again mustered all of the volunteers. Many of them are sitting here today to make sure that our elections operate smoothly, and that was not an easy task. Especially when COVID struck, Chuck spent countless hours, I can't even imagine how many hundreds of hours, preparing for the election so we could all be protected and our process of voting would not be impeded, protected our democratic rights. Democratic. So Chuck, it's with great honor that I present the gift, a symbol of our appreciation for your service and commitment to our community from the Board of Selectmen and the residents of all of our community. Thank you, Chuck.
I want to, the long litany of areas that were put under conservation easement, I want to just say, I've had the pleasure of working with Bob and 7 other people over the last 39 years, and I will tell you that we have the least turnover of any board or commission in this town, with many people having served 20 or more years. And I'll tell you what, it is because of a dedicated group of people on the Conservation Commission that those things that John read off happened. They don't just happen by accident. I have been serving as their chair for a number of years, but so has Bob, so has Helen, and I could go on. Many of those were not my responsibility, but I was a part of that, and I'm very happy to have served the town in that capacity, just as I have been to be a moderator for the last 12 years. This has not been the best year for me, and I will just share. I had spinal surgery in December. I am due to have hip replacement shortly. I turned 78 last November, and it is time for me to end my reign of terror. So I want to thank you all for your appreciation and applause, and now we can move on to Article number 11. To see if the town will vote, to provide an advisory opinion in support of the town to eliminate curbside pickup of recycling in the town of Tilton, and a vote of yes on this article shall be a vote in support of eliminating curbside pickup of recycling in the town, and a vote of no shall be in opposition of eliminating such curbside pickup. And I believe Joe Jessamine is going to start with this. Joe, are you ready?
Proposed.
No, we're not going to adopt it, but it is advisory, so go right ahead, Joe.
Okay.
Second.
A lot of you know me, and that I'm a big proponent of recycling and starting the recycling here in town. And we had a vote there was a bag component to it, and recycling at the curb and things like that. And I see some faces that were up to that. It made financial sense that we were getting paid for recycling. We're not in Kansas anymore. I'm here to tell you that we're going to pay up to $100 a ton to get rid of recycling this year. And with no end in sight, the incinerator down in Petticook is raising their prices, and they're raising their prices significantly. We've explored a lot of different options. Where could we bring our garbage and dump it? The regular MSW collection site. There is no place. There's one up in Bethlehem, but they're at $90 a ton at the gate, and you have to get it there. There's no easy answers to this. The preliminary bids suggest an increase in solid waste of $66,000 between this year and next year. And thereafter, over the next 5-year contract period, it goes up $5 a year. The contract is due to expire in 2023. That's $257,000 to $316,000 annually. These costs are the best case scenario. Without the recycling, we'd save $7,000, possibly more, in the tonnage fees. That recycling would go right to the incinerator. It would be picked up as trash on the sidewalk. The alternatives would be to do nothing. To continue our current practices, which will have a tax impact of 10 cents a thousand this year, all off everything in solid waste and save on the recycling disposal and pickup. Although the pickup won't go down as much as you would think it would. We've gotten bids from various garbage contractors, and we're talking like it'll go down 16 grand, less than 20 grand, to emit an entire collection. But that's, again, the best case scenario. Nobody is dropping their price. We could uplist the transfer station to a upfit to accommodate recycling there. The market for recycling is getting better. You can sell cardboard, and you can sell plastic, and you can even sell glass. But you have to separate it, and we're paying up to $100 a ton to get somebody to separate it in Massachusetts. Not good. Whatever alternative we choose, we'd also propose that residents take their construction and demolition trash directly to Casella, which would have saved us $16,000 this year. Now what that is, if I ripped down my deck, in the past I could bring the pressure treated wood and railings and whatever to the transfer station, and they would eyeball it and tell me $10, $15. They didn't know because they didn't know. And this would mean that I would take it to Casella and I would pay what it actually costs to get rid of it. That means Bob Hardy doesn't have to pay to get rid of my deck. And that seems like a pretty fair, thing to me. Disposal costs are projected to be $85 a ton next year. And currently we dispose of 1,100 tons of solid waste and 330 tons of recycling. Now, it's time to ask ourselves, and it turns out that even though we had a vote of town meeting, that was, the selectmen still have the authority to change the garbage pickup, where the garbage is brought. We operate that by law, because I thought we'd have to have a vote of town meeting to get rid of curbside recycling. We really don't, legally. But here we are, and I think the Board of Selectmen, who is going to make some choices coming up here, would like to have the input of the town's residents into what are we going to do with their trash, because it's only going to get more expensive. That's it.
Okay, microphone one.
David Fox. I want to agree with Joe, hopefully a lot quicker. I was on the original committees to form recycling in Tilton. I was very proud of that effort. And at the time, it made economic sense and it made environmental sense. That's no longer the case. So I therefore support doing away with the program that I worked hard to create.
Microphone two.
Lucinda Hope, Lancaster Hill Road, a 50-year resident of Tilton now. I have a question. In the last several years, has our recycling actually been recycled? Or has it been dumped someplace else?
Yes.
By contract, it has to be recycled. We get slips and whatever of what we're paying at the tipping fee for that. They're not just bringing it to the incinerator. And it's cost us a considerable extra money to do that, but that was what we decided to do as a community.
Another question. If the curbside is eliminated, are we guaranteed that those of us who care about what happens to our globe, can we take it down and separate it down at the garage facility? Thank you.
Yes, right ahead.
Yeah, I have a proposal, because I'm a recycler, and I'm gonna bring it somewhere. Before we had recycling here in town, I brought it to the Casella, and we, separated it over there. But we're not set up currently to separate necessarily at our transfer station. We could, and I have a plan here that ultimately could cost as much as $300,000 for balers and all the associated costs before we get it up and running. But we could have like a dumpster for cardboard. There's various forms this could take, but I will advocate hard for some form of separation at our transfer station, which we can then in turn set.
Okay, microphone one.
I would like to speak in support of voting yes to eliminate curbside recycling. Lynn Fox, I'm sorry. When we voted to establish the recycling program, we were operating under misunderstandings, or rather, we were lied to, is rather a more direct way of putting it. The plastics industry was never going to be recyclable. There is only 10% of plastic ever can be recycled, and only 8% of that actually is. Anywhere in the world, that is just facts. It has never been viably economically. It has only been marginally viable when China, because they're an extremely low-wage country, would take our recyclables. It has not been true. The fact is, the only answer to plastic waste is to do away with single-use plastics, but that is not within our power as a town. Insofar as we're individuals, we can do that. Glass, metal, and the plastics that can be recycled, we should have the ability to recycle. But the fact is, this was always a pipe dream that was never going to be either economically or environmentally viable. So I support voting yes on this article.
Microphone two.
Tommy Damon, Galeville Road. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. What I can foresee here, if we eliminate Casella picking up our recyclables, is a whole new infrastructure at the DPW. We're going to have separate bins. We're going to have balers. We're going to have to buy trucks. We're going to have to hire operators, all to get this stuff out of here. But I would like to ask a question to Mr. Jessamine through you, Mr. Moderator. This has nothing to do with just garbage or rubbish. This has to do with recycling. Am I correct? The regular rubbish recycling will remain. It's just the recycling. Thank you. And, I can just see, like you said previously, $300,000 infrastructure modification. Can we take this hit? I don't know if we can. But I just wanted to get that out there so that food for thought for the folks that are here. I'm a recycler myself, but like the previous lady said, the plastic is a joke. Glass is even a joke. I know Laconia stopped recycling glass because there was no money in it. So that just goes in with regular rubbish. As far as like plastic bags and all that other, towns have passed ordinances to prevent stores from issuing plastic bags. They have done that in the past. If you go to Maine now, you can't get a plastic bag. You bring your bag with you. I mean, maybe we can start a trend. I don't know. But as far as recycling, I think we should I think we should keep doing it as long as we can before we have to, spend $300,000 on infrastructure. Thank you.
Okay, John?
Just real quick, Lynn, just to clarify, we're not voting on any articles on this. This is,
We will, when we finish up with the discussion today, get a sense of whether or not...
it's
we wish-
advisory.
Yes.
Is what I'm trying to say, that it's not going to be, And everybody, we're looking for as much input as possible, because this is going to be something we're going to deal with this year.
Microphone 2.
Dr. Tilton. Joe, I'm going to direct this to you because I know the knowledge you have of this. Is there a suggestion or recommendation? This isn't something I'm familiar with. I would like to know your opinion, if that's possible, on what your thoughts are on this.
Yeah, Chuck. I've worked with Dave, and I advocated real hard for the curbside recycling. At that time, there was a market for these things. There was never a big market for glass. They put it in as a paving material or whatever, but nobody's really collecting it. I disagree with your characterization of being lied to. The best information that I have now is you can sell plastics. I mean, it's not as much as cardboard and newsprint because those are much more easily recyclable. But the market went real south real fast when China got out of it. My personal feeling is I'm going to vote to discontinue curbside recycling. And I'm not going to advocate for $300,000 being spent at the transfer station. No way. That was the Cadillac Taj Mahal version. I mean, I'm just thinking we need a couple of dumpsters down there so that people can throw cardboard in one and plastic in one and whatever. And we can continue our efforts because it is good for the environment. It's good to reuse and reduce our use of these materials. It just is. I'm thoroughly convinced, but I'm going to vote to discontinue curbside recycling in answer to your question.
Microphone 1.
Hi, Ryan Stanlin, 124 East Main Street. When it comes to recycling, I have to agree with David that we initially thought this would be a great process and benefiting the environment, but with more of these plastics and this zero sort recycling being thrown away due to lack of compliance, we can't recycle things such as wax, cardboard, with other paper and such. And I can see the general public not really literally cleaning out the last bit of peanut butter in those plastic jars. And that just leads it to being contaminated and thrown away. While I support recycling of glass if it is economical and recycling cleaned metals, I think those who are able to return these items to a transfer station are going to be more compliant than the general public and more knowledgeable. So I do agree with dissolving of the curbside sorted recycling for that reason. And as somebody who's worked with the cardboard balers, they are quite profitable. That's why companies such as Hannaford's and Market Basket are actually being paid to recycle this. So these private businesses are making money off of these cardboard balers. So I don't immediately have the education or knowledge about these balers, but maybe some sort of investigation into whether how fast these balers can pay for themselves. It is silly to think, but there is value in cardboard recycling.
Joe, are you? Go ahead, it's your mic.
I have a lot of that information already. I don't think it's prudent to go out and spend $45,000 on a baler the first year. Maybe next year, if we can prove that it'll pay for itself quickly. But this is about basically, are we going to continue to pick up recycling at the curb? in my mind. Because technically, you could do away with all trash pickup. You're on your own. That's what they do in Meredith. You hire a private guy and they bring it wherever they bring it, and you pay by the pound, and think of that, we'd save almost $250,000 of taxes if we decided to do it that way. Of course, we'd also have, probably for a while, big piles of trash and stuff dumped out on Pest House Road, or whatever, because there are those.
Thank you. I can see people at the microphone. I'm going to call on Tim Pearson, and then we'll go up to mic 2. Tim?
Thank you. I just wanted to point out that looking at our costs only, our collection cost and disposal for solid waste is $208 a ton currently. For recycling, it's $414.
Okay, microphone 2.
Hi, Steve Woodford. I came here to vote no on this, but I think you've changed my mind. I don't think this works for us anymore, but it has nothing to do with anybody's passion for recycling. You seem to be very passionate about recycling. So you've already kind of answered half this. Could you just flesh out the next 3 to 5 years? I mean, if the town wants to recycle, we seem to have lost the battle, but what's your plan on winning that war? Like, are we going to be a town that recycles in the future? What do you look the next 3 to 5 years?
I got microphone 2, then the microphone 1.
Nicole, Lancaster Hill Road, if we take, I'm thinking of what Tim just said, if we add up those weights, the tons, how much are we actually saving? As people who are not going to drive somewhere and separate their garbage will just put all of what they've been recycling into their solid waste. So I'm wondering if you figured it out that way.
Mr. Moderator?
Jim, yeah, go ahead.
We would be entering into a new agreement because our agreement will expire at the end of '22. So we'd be looking, an estimate would be somewhere in the $50,000 range that we look to save through the absence of 2 collection runs, and that will help defray the additional costs of the tipping fees that are coming from the incinerator. So it's hard to say right now until we've actually negotiated.
Okay, microphone 1.
Juliet Murphy-Bollier, I'd like to call a question.
Since this is here for just the input, Lynn, I'm going to let you were there. You want to speak? Okay. Okay, let me read Article 11 now. Realize your yes is just an advisory opinion. If you vote no again, it's advisory. To see if the town will vote to provide an advisory opinion of support to eliminate curbside pickup of recycling in the town of Tilton. Again, your yes vote on this is to eliminate it. A no vote would be to continue curbside picking up. And I'll tell you what, we'll do a voice vote, and if it's close, we'll do a standing vote. Those who would like to eliminate curbside pickup, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Well, I guess there's your answer. I don't have to declare that vote. Is there anyone who has anything else to come before this group today? Again, I would like to please remind all those who were elected on the town ballot to please come down here and be sworn in. And hopefully witin 5 minutes, you will have a new moderator. Thank you all very much for coming today. Appreciate it. Yes.
I just have one last quick thing.
Sure.
Now that we've spoken on Article 11, if the selectmen decide to do away with it, can you please consider a way to get those bins off our property? I've called them several times for a damaged one, and they basically say, well, someone else was the company you had before, we can't do anything. You got a couple 100,000 houses, I don't know. No more, it's no longer needed.
Adam Staley, Lancaster Hill Road. I would like to reiterate, I am in support of buying the police vehicle. I would implore the select board to work with the agent, the department head with the police department to come up with perhaps a capital reserve fund so that we can buy a car every year, and that the selectmen are limited to using the money for the police car. Secondly, I would like to point out and thank that the select board and the department heads did a lot of research, both on the vehicle and the recycling. They were very prepared. We didn't hear as much of it at this meeting as they have done in their past several selectmen's meetings, but they are very prepared, and they did a good job with that this year. Thirdly, so the voting body knows, there have been some very concerning ethical issues that have come to light with the select board in the past few weeks. I would suggest that people perhaps look into that and hope that when the polls come around again, that we would take that into consideration. Thank you.
One last comment. Our town clerk, tax collector, Kim?
Yes. Mr. Miller, okay, thank you very much. All right, very briefly, I've been with the town 13 years, come this July. I've just become town clerk tax collector. Time flies. What I am here to ask for your consideration today is that with the rest of the town, the merit raise is up to 4%. If I have nothing changed today, will need to wait a year and 3/4, almost 2 years before a new consideration. So what I'm asking today, because I need to ask, is that you would consider a 4% increase in what I am to receive in pay. And I think that explains everything. I'll answer questions if I have to. Thank you very much.
No, we've already approved the budget. I'm sorry, that would not be appropriate at this time. I am, however, looking, microphone 2. Motion to adjourn? Yes, a motion to adjourn would be in order. Did you just move it? So moved. Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Meeting is adjourned.
Did you wear a flannel shirt? No.
How are you? Gentlemen? Lady? How are you? Good to see you.
They should do this electronically, and they wouldn't have to recycle. They do.
I've sat on the school board, the budget committees, all kinds of things.
It was with a pension program, and we had to do them. We would print like 40. Originally, we were printing and I don't think anybody read them. I always thought it would be fun to send somebody that would just, we can read this.
Stand up next week. This is not next week, this is big. School district.
I'll come to that for my son. He teaches.
$25 million budget.
Yes,
Biggest amount of your tax bill.
My son's a middle school teacher. He's finding Concord more and more.
A lot of teachers do when they come here. There are a lot of other districts around that was fine, you know.
Well,
We're in the middle of the pack. Always have been.
It sounded, Jen, that